Welcome to Discover Indie Film. I'm your host, Jeff Howard, and I've got filmmaker Samuël L. Jodry. I think he just taught me the French pronunciation, Jodry. I can't do the Jodry, but hey, Samuel, good to see you.
Hey, hi, good to see you too.
Yeah, we are on Zoom, so if you, the recording quality is pretty good, but if you have a complaint about the recording quality, blame Zoom, don't blame us. We're here to talk about Samuel and his film Bengal, which actually has one of my favorite titles ever. I'll share that. I mean, it's a great film, and I'm proud to say it's going to be in the Discover Indie Film TV series in season 5. But Bengal, I won't butcher the French parenthetical in the title, but it's Bengal, and then in parentheses, or before happiness strikes, which I always thought that was one of the best titles, Samuel, because I just love the idea of the title of something being before happiness strikes.
I mean, I really appreciated the translation because I think it's your team, you and your team who came up with this. I didn't know how to translate the French version. Was avant, bonheur, frappe. It didn't translate well for me in English, but before happiness strikes, I mean, it's just like suits it like to the title. So, I mean, yeah, I think like the English makes it sound like even better, I think.
Really? Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I didn't... Right, because obviously happiness striking fits the theme of the film better than like happiness happens or happiness this or happiness that. Before we hop into the discussion of how you got into film and then up to Bengal, I do want to mention that it is going to be, I already did, but I want to elaborate on the TV series. If people want to watch the film, if you're watching this, I think in March of 2022, season 5 of the Discover Indie Film TV series is going to come out. So if you have Amazon Prime Video, just go to Prime Video, search for Discover Indie Film, and Bengal, or Before Happiness Strikes, will be in season 5. Very proud of that. I just think it's a tremendously good film. I'm looking forward to discussing it further and telling Samuel more of what I think of it. But before we get to discussing Bengale, please, what was your inspiration to get into film?
Well, the very first time I thought I was exposed to the medium, I think it was when I was like 10 or 11. I found out about Windows Movie Maker. Is that what it's called? You know, like that old like free editing program coming by default with any Microsoft computers. And I started to do like just like simple titles and music, you know, just to kind of get what it was. And then I got a webcam, and that's when I started to implement, moving images and this kind of little editing software, and started creating like little stories. Before, like it was one take, one shot, you know, stories. And then like I started to kind of just like create like different shot and angles and, you know, even like kind of catching that I could be like closer or further from the camera and stuff like that. And that's how I was exposed. And immediately from that moment and on, I just wanted to be, what I later thought was like filmmaking. You know?
And how old were you when you started playing with that? Were you like,
10 or 11, I think.
10 or 11, right? So even before middle school, really.
Yes. Here it's called different, but I was still like in elementary school. So before I started to go like in high school and stuff. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think I mentioned you're in Montreal, but yeah.
Just in case someone's listening and they're like, well, where's he from that they don't have middle school? The answer is Canada.
There you go.
Excellent. Well, you know what? You're the second person. I can't remember who the first was, but more than one person has said that Windows Movie Maker really was an inspirational tool.
And it's funny because it's a technical tool, you know, and it just gets you to create really simple stuff. And the thing that's good is that, but then like it gets you like unsatisfied at some point how like restricted it is in terms of like, you know, like technical things you can do with that. You know, there's a really fast limit you reach using this kind of program. So it gets you looking for even more powerful or like just elaborate tools to just like get your stories even more like, elaborate. And that's the kind of thing that gets me like, that got me like to evolve, like quickly when I was young, like I wanted to do bigger stories, more complicated stories, and then even more like kind of special effects or whatever, so I think that's funny how like this simple program, it gets you into filmmaking, like, or wanting to do that.
And I love that you used a webcam. That makes perfect sense. Like if you get a long enough cord with a webcam, you can really probably do quite a bit for almost no money at all.
Yeah. I mean, my first film, like I guess more elaborate film was called The Hunt. And I actually elaborated a story that was happening completely in my basement. But, like I created like some sort of a forest and a storyline between a father and his son going to hunting. And it lasted like 35 minutes and it wasn't really good. I got to tell you, but I had a lot of fun doing it.
Well, and those early things that weren't satisfying artistically, still it's all about learning.
Yeah, exactly.
And the fact that you had the ambition to tell such an elaborate story, I'm not surprised you ended up in filmmaking. Well, so did you, in high school or the equivalent, did you shift over to things like Adobe Premiere and bigger, better cameras, or did it wait till university?
It was like called Power Director. It was like made by Cyberlink, and that's the program I used for like probably like my whole time in high school, because I was doing like every time there was like a presentation to do or something, I was making a video or a little film, instead of just like going in front of the class and doing this kind of a like presentation. And I got known for this, and some other students, were they're coming up to me and asking me like, well, can you make a video with me for my presentation? And it got like to be like one of my first kind of talent I would be known for. I was the guy who's making video at school for his presentations, and I was always trying to kind of find a story behind it, so it could be like entertaining, good, and like good content as well. Like I wanted to have this notion of just not making it like for the sake of making a video, but I just wanted it to be like justified. So it became like really early on like my obsession. I wanted everything to be on a screen, me directing something for the screen. That's what I wanted to do.
Excellent. So did you, were you able to find mentors? Were there teachers, programs, or were you doing it completely independently?
I always had like this kind of firm idea that I could do everything myself at an early age, which is like, it's helpful, but at some point, when you realize kind of the quality you can get to, there's a limit that you can do things alone, especially with fiction. Documentary, I can't say, but with fiction, there's you cannot shoot a 2-minute film for 2-3 days, at some point you got to fit, and I would be obsessed and shoot like without stopping for so long, because I was the only one in the team with like the actors who was often my father, because he used to do theater, and he used to just like bring other fellow theater people with me to just like create short films and stuff. So, I would say that my first mentor was my father, because he was the one who exposed me to acting and giving directions to people. And that was my first kind of challenge to just like kind of learn to communicate, like directions to acting. And that's what I kind of got obsessed with, because I then decided to take theater courses and to know what it is to get directed and to act as well. I wouldn't consider myself a good actor, but I actually got to do some theater and it got me in this position, And I feel like that would be my first exposition to like kind of real world of filmmaking, because I feel like it starts when you start to do it with other people. and my first people to do films with were actors and comedians.
Which makes sense. And Lord knows, even if directors, some people move into directing from acting, but if directors at least dip their toe into acting and just try a little bit of training, I think it greatly increases your respect for it, because directors who don't respect just how difficult acting is are probably the ones that make life more difficult for actors, because acting is 1,000 times more difficult than most people acknowledge.
Definitely. And it's difficult also to just get away from the wanted result, you know, you want to get from an actor, and just like kind of to give you, you know, something else than what you imagine, you know, or closer to, or more realistic, because your job is to just imagine stuff, but their job is to make it real for you. So it's two different kind of perspective. And when you don't, when I feel like when you don't have that, you don't know about that. Well, it's just like the workflow is completely different and also like the communication is totally different. Yeah,
absolutely. So that's cool. So then did university come along and you study some more? Or?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I got into what they call here CJEP. So it's like a 2-year program that gets you prepared for university. And yeah, I did like a couple of short films over there. And my teachers started to really like help me perfect, you know, my technique and my editing process as well. Because it was still like a kind of a notion of do everything yourself, you know, like you can really team up, you know, if you team up, it would be like a 2-director thing, you know, it wouldn't really teach you to, one could direct, one could write, one could edit and whatever. You could just like do everything together. So I just wanted to do everything myself. But like my teachers really, I feel like they saw something in me, like the motivation I had to just go further with this and maybe make it a career. So like they took me seriously and they really helped me to like give me not harsh comment, but, you know, like real comments about my work. And they were always like more real with me than they were with the other people who they thought were less kind of serious. And that really helped me kind of just have a more critical eye on my own work, which is something you don't really have, I feel like, when you start, you know, when you're young and you just want to create and everything feels so vibrant and new and exciting, you know. And then when you get to school, you get to learn the critical kind of aspect of everything, because it gets to that point, I feel. And then I made my way to university, to this filmmaking program for 3 years, and it was even harder from the critical perspective, because now you're with a bunch of serious people, you know, doing this, and they want to make it their career, and the critical aspect of it now gets kind of too big. It gets to another proportion, and that was hard for me, because I was used to just like kind of work closer with people in a smaller room, you know, and I was not used to show my work on a big screen to other people for them to criticize or just kind of comment on it, you know. And that's the first time I was exposed to wider critic. And I had a hard time with that, but I kind of cope with it now. And, you know, I think that that's part of the learning process of filmmaking, right?
Well, Lord knows you can't really be a filmmaker and never hear other people's opinions of your work.
Exactly.
I mean, it is a public art. It's you know, there's really no way. And of course it is great training to have a classroom full of peers watch your work and say what they do and don't like about it. And obviously it allows for great growth.
Yeah, exactly. That's when I learned the most about myself, my work, and other people's work, and the business in general.
And, you know, you can learn, you know, because actually one of the things I learned when I was around that age was, wow, there's a lot of untalented people. like you can, it's great to hear these opinions, but sometimes you hear opinions from someone, you're like, oh, and then you see their work and you go, oh, okay, I'm not going to listen to that person.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, exactly, like the notion that some people are better to criticize than doing the work, you can compare yourself at some point, like you get to know, to kind of gauge quality, of work among your people.
And I think I can comfortably say after honestly, decades involved with independent film, that it's the filmmakers who seek critiques and seek feedback, and then they take it and they make it their own, and they say, okay, that's allowed me to see it a different way. And then they do another edit that's much better than even the notes were. I've seen that many times, and it really is the people who are open to expanding their point of view beyond what their original point of view was. I think their work ends up being just tremendously good.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, definitely. Most of the comments I have to process them for a while before I apply it to the film, because like you say, making it your own, because they're commenting something that you kind of own for so long, that belonged to you like inside, and that now you have to share, and they're now like bringing it back to you, and there's kind of reflection back and forth. Well, it needs some process, and when you process it, like I feel that's when it gets the most helpful, for your work, your project. Yeah, definitely right.
For sure. Oh, so you went through that, and I imagine you were making a couple films a year, all shorts in that university program, the 3-year?
Yeah, I ended up making like two short films, like fully from the beginning, like, because they were like little projects, I wouldn't consider them like short films. I wouldn't like show them to like the wide world right now. But like there are 2 films I made, and those projects were the ones that you put most of your ambition in when you're in school, for whatever like you can put in for a school project like that. And those films, they were like projects that I did. I think what I had to learn was how to put some of my personal stuff in there, like how they tell you, the best stories are stories or you went through yourself, and that you can just kind of subtly implement in your films, And I feel like I got to learn that, because I was always often drawn to create characters or stories that were kind of felt far from me, and then when I got to kind of implement some personal stuff, like personal like feelings, I kind of noticed the difference, because you learn to write, you learn to direct, you learn to edit, you learn to critic, you learn to, it's a lot of things that you learn all at once, and I feel like you have to go step by step, and the writing is something that I learned kind of later on in the process of filmmaking, which is weird, because I feel like I should have, kind of started there and then directing and then,
Not necessarily. I get it. And what you're saying makes perfect sense, because when someone's writing, because you can learn all the technical aspects of filmmaking, but then to tell a truly intriguing story with insight, I think you do have to look a bit inside yourself, even if, you take what's in you and you change it greatly for the screen, but it's still inspired by something that's true for you. I think that puts truth in the material.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas we can always tell, honestly, like I have, not that everything's about gender, but I have some female friends who we can watch something, and they've done it many times, where they say, okay, this woman's story was written by a man. And then we look at it at the credits, and it was, it's because there really wasn't a kernel of truth, I think. And she sniffs it out. So starting with that kernel of truth, making it a personal at least the inspiration coming from something personal to you, is a way to make sure that there's integrity to it.
yeah, like the human side, right? Like to put like some real human, like make them alive, like in a way, like the humanity of it all.
For sure. No, I mean, you're making me think about how I always thought about writing and filmmaking as, it's really an extension of campfire stories. When we were a couple thousand years ago, we would just sit around a campfire and talk at night because human beings need to share their stories. And, the filmmakers of today are storytellers around a different campfire.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's still light into that. The screen is our new light.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So after school, you found yourself, were you always in the Montreal area?
I was born maybe 45 minutes away from Montreal, which is enough to be a really different kind of playground. And it was not really a playground where art was really promoted for as a profession, as a career. So I kind of had to fight that. But as soon as I got to university, I moved to Montreal. That's when I really got into the big city and the big world of filmmaking, and that I got exposed to it in some way, or just a lot more than I would if I would have stayed in my hometown.
For sure. And then it sounds like you never stepped away. You've been involved in film all the way through. And after university, how soon till you made Bengal?
Actually, it was right out of school. That's the first thing I wanted to do for many reasons. But that film I had written for almost 2 years, and I was ready to make it as soon as I was out of school. And the idea behind it, I think, was, especially since I'm out of school, I need not to prove myself, but to just get into a story that would be really different from what I would have done within the school walls, And Bengal was literally kind of this storyline of getting out of, the storyline of getting out of prison was for me the storyline of getting out of school. It was kind of this situation I was going through, and I wanted to expose it for my own sake. And we got to shoot this film maybe 2 weeks after I graduated, actually. Maybe it was a month, but it was really close to the time frame I got out of school seats.
No, I mean, that's very soon. That's not like a year or two later. Absolutely qualifies as immediately after. So you had the script, and you had worked on the script, you just said, for 2 years or so.
Yeah, exactly. I wrote the first little kind of a premise of the film 2 years prior to making it. And then it went through a whole process of showing it to people, making it read by teachers or just consultants and their friends and family. That script got read by a lot of people before it got to the final version. And after kind of accumulating all this feedback, that's when I sat down and I scratched everything and rewrote the whole story from the characters I already had in mind, and changed kind of the whole story. And that's when I decided actually that the story would be in a 24-hour time frame, and it would be a really simple story, complex story, but really simple time frame, and just really give me restrictions for it to be a short film that would just work as a 2-3 days shoot, and would keep me low on the budget, and just more get more reacher on the creative side. That's what I aimed for with this. So yeah, that's what happened with this film. Yeah.
Great. Well, I guess now it's time for me to start saying all these great things about it. I don't know how you feel about spoilers. I know we urged people to watch it when it comes out. I guess I won't spoil too much, but I just wanted to say that your creativity and for a young person, so innovative, right from the opening titles, the way you present the film is just innovative and cinematic. It stands out immediately. It strikes me as work from a very seasoned filmmaker, because a seasoned filmmaker who understands with the first frame, just the way I present the title of the film, I'm going to make sure that the viewer knows they're in for a different kind of experience.
That's such interesting, because that's the. I mean, I was really inspired by a film I really liked, which was Birdman, which is a film I watched so many times. And the title sequence in this film, I mean, it gave me this feeling that you're describing. I didn't think of it that way back then, but I just thought that it was such a great way to get the attention. You know, I wanted the titles to be like, yes, like it's what it is. It's going to be like a story, a really intense story, and then get ready for it, you know. And it was the right way to do it, you know. Yeah. I think that's what it was. Yeah, I like.
Well, I think you did that absolutely, and then the filmmaking. I mean, it's just a wonderful blend of the techniques of filmmaking that you use, because the film looks fantastic. The training with your father came through because your performances are superb, and your writing is superb. I absolutely love the story. I won't give it away, but I love how you capture human sexuality and different ways people express it, and that there's a broad spectrum of it, and that there's not one way. And there's a character who is more open, to his sexuality, and people who are more defined by heterosexuality, people who aren't. And I just think it's superb that way. And also quite sexy at times. Yeah. And then no spoilers. And then I just got to say, like, I watched it again this morning before we spoke, because, it's June 2020 was a year and a half ago. Yes. And even your end credits, where you choose to be like the bright yellow that was a bit of a theme for you with the black lettering, even that was something I don't think that's just so original that we never see that.
Yeah. I mean, it was just, I think like there was this intention of going crazy, because the universe is, well, so crazy, I think, to me, because like you say, the palette was like yellow everywhere. We wanted yellow painted on the screen, and well, the only time we could actually do that was at the end. And for me, the yellow of it all could be the happiness of that we don't necessarily see in the movie. Is it coming or is it not? Like, we don't know, but the yellow to me was kind of this representation of a lot of things, and the fact that we wanted to put it like it was the idea behind it. It was a theme more than just a color and a palette and everything.
Yeah, I mean, there's a yellow hue throughout for sure, which is interesting. I imagine in the beginning, you already mentioned prison. I think in the beginning it's actually quite stark, right? There's actually, and then that yellow warmth once he's at his friend's apartment.
Exactly.
Yeah. Really, really impressive how thoughtful you were about all the all the tools available to you as a director. And of course, this one you wrote, directed, and produced yourself. So, although I recall from the credits, you did actually have a fairly decent sized crew.
Yeah, we did. I think we were, on the shoot days, we might have been like 10, 12, which is not a big team because we were shooting this really small space. But, we had this, like, enough people to make it, like, possible to shoot, like, in a, like, to have this ambition, this creative ambition, for sure. Because it wasn't that easy to do that, to get to that result. We actually needed, like, an extra crew, So, it was, I feel like, the whole movie came to life, with this crew. And the cinematographer, actually, he had those crazy ideas, of making a jungle, of Bengal. And that's when the title came, cause before it was just Before Happiness Strikes. That was the original title, but Bengal came, and there was kind of his like grain of salt. And that's how, like, I feel like it was a whole collaboration, Bengal, because since I was so involved, I wanted to people working with in the movie to just like be as involved as I was, and that's how it was possible to make that film, honestly. Yeah.
And casting, I got to ask about casting. Did you just do an open casting kind of thing, or were you familiar with some of the actors first?
I knew two of the actors. The one playing Charles was one I already knew, and that's probably the first role I casted. Like I actually organized some auditions for the role of Lucas, and I asked this guy to come in to give the lines to the actors. And after we did the auditions, I didn't find Lucas, but I told him, well, that's what I want. That's you. I want you for Charles, and he wanted to do it like right off, because they were like mostly people from theater. And they're just craving this experience for the screen, they're young people, I think that's what like make it like possible. And then the casting for Lucas, that's what was most complicated about it, is I wanted a specific kind of role. And I organized some auditions for like regular kind of, people that were already actors in the industry in Montreal. So we called like agencies and stuff, and organized some auditions for them, and couldn't quite find it. And a lot of people kind of turned it down as well for the sexual aspect of the role. It wasn't easy to convince people to go there, or there was like some compromise to do. And for that scene, I didn't want to do it really. Like, it was like a really important scene, so I didn't want to go too far in the compromise section. And what they were asking, it was too much. So, I mean, I was like, I feel like theater people would be willing to go there, and I tried to find a wild actor, and Benjamin came across, and he surprised me in every single way. Just the way he is, like, you have this hyper kind of active personality, and he's very direct in the way he speaks, and his emotions as well are very direct. As like his words could slip away from his mouth, well, emotions as well. He's a really raw person, and I felt like, well, let's play with this rawness. That was the perfect ingredient for the role of Lucas, and I was surprised because I didn't know it was what I was looking for, but he was exactly what I was looking for when I saw him. Yeah, so that's how we went with it. Yeah.
Right, so the rawness of that character, because raw is probably the perfect word for that character, because he's just this raw bundle of energy, not sure where to put his energy, and that was on the page, but it even became more so once you found the right performer. Yeah,
because I mean, like, since there was kind of this medical, like, diagnosis, with Lucas, with La Tourette, I didn't want it to become like kind of the center of his personality. I didn't want it to have like tics or whatever, like really obvious things that would make him, like, oh yeah, he's got it. I just needed to have a person who was naturally, like kind of giving me this, so we would do it all the time, not just like in specific moments, and and the rawness was to also have this kind of, well, you don't know what's going to do next, like, is he going to get like really angry, happy, or is he just going to be like really normal or whatever, like, it's just, you don't want to know what's going to do next, and especially since it's getting out of prison, there's so many things going on in his mind. Well, you just expect the same from his personality,
Yeah. And for a 15-minute short, with 3 actors in it, three performers, the relationships between those 3 are so complex, and yet you casted so well that, like, when Claire first walks in and sees Lucas is there, the dynamic between those 3, I think, is just apparent immediately. Like, that she's sensing a threat, but she's accepting it. And Charles is saying, yeah, he's going to stay with us for a little bit. Just got, there was so much going on at once, but with almost no words. Just they weren't saying what they were feeling. I just found that to be really compelling.
That's great that you felt that. It was exactly the intention, and it was like the most stressful thing about this movie for me was to really be able to capture this moment, the one in the hallway. You know, that was like I felt, well, it became that when I watched the raw footage after the shoot. I was like, oh well, like that's the scene, you know, that's going to tell you, well, that's not going to go well, or you know, it's going to be really intense. You know, like something is not right with this trio. You know, so I was really happy. It was I think. I don't know if you agree, but I think that would be like the magic of film, you know, when you shoot a scene and you watch it back at the end of the day and you're like, that's the right scene. That shot is the right one, you know, like you feel that the script has now been like put on the screen, you know, in a really truthful and satisfying way. You know, that's what you work for every day of your life in filmmaking.
That is the magic of filmmaking is when you get something maybe even better than what you were aiming for, right? Maybe even truer. Like everyone says there's 3 films, right? There's the one on the page, there's the one that you shoot, and then there's the one that you edit. So it sounds like you had honestly a great experience at all 3 stages.
Oh, I did, definitely. And you know what? I would even like add to what you just said, that what's on paper is just false. You know, it doesn't exist. It's your imagination. And what's going to shoot is where it's going to be true. You know, the truth of it all is going to be on the screen. So whatever's on paper, if you're looking to get what's on the paper, you're not going to get it. You know, you got to expect, you know, even more, or you got to expect surprise, you know, when you got to be like on the set. You got to be open enough to just get away from that paper. You got to know what's on the paper, but for you to know that you just surpassed it and that you just got it. And that's what I felt I got when we shot. And that was so satisfying in so many ways. Yeah.
That's interesting. Do you find, and I can say even from personal experience many decades ago, but there's sometimes you can tell an actor, you don't have to be completely loyal to what's on the page. You can take it a step further, and some actors will do it happily, and some actors stick to the script like it's a perfect blueprint.
Yeah. I'm like really happy you said that, because I'm really a big like, I mean, since it's like I wrote it, I was really like loose on like, I want you guys to make those dialogues yours, you know? So if you feel like, yeah, because, you know, like the dialect they speak is not like a true French. It's like the Quebecois dialect. So it's a, I don't know, I would say like more familiar kind of language, you know, that they use. It's a really Montreal, it's Quebec's really local kind of language, you know, or appropriation of French. And it was important for me for it to feel like it was a local thing. You know, I wanted those people to speak a real language, not just like, phrases that I wrote down, you know, for them. And, they've fought it a little at first because they're theater people, and in theater, it's the opposite. You have to stick to what's written down. And I mean, I think that they slowly embraced it as we rehearsed. And that was the most important. We rehearsed not a lot, but we did have time to rehearse and kind of correct the scenes, you know. And well, that's what helped us to just like get there, you know, to just make it like, you know, make dialogue real, you know, more than just like making the delivery real, you know.
Yeah, with few, I mean, there's the rare exception where it's good to avoid rehearsal to have something really immediate. But I think you can, every time the relationships between characters have a lot of depth and a lot of layers to them. Invariably, the filmmaker tells me that there was rehearsal because really, otherwise, there's no real way for the actors to build up that. You know, I mean, this film, your characters have years of history together.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
You created a situation where they were able to explore that.
And you know what? Like, that's interesting you'd say that, because in the rehearsals we organized, I was making sure that we would rehearse for maybe 20, like 30 minutes. And then like there was like a good 2 hours of just like them connecting, talking, and learning about each other's history. And they were like, they even learned like they were from the same school, but just different ages. And like they were able to connect on so many things. So like, that's when they like, I could feel like, oh, now they know each other. And even on the screen, it's going to feel like they know each other. They're not going to like, look like people who just like, oh, hi, the morning of the shoot, and my name is whatever, and they rehearse the text together. No, they actually talk, they had conversations, and that was so helpful for them to just get into the character and make it like feel like they knew each other for a long time, and it felt really interesting to go through that process with them. And it was basically a rehearsal anyway. We not only rehearse the film, we rehearse the chemical kind of relationship between them,
which is so interesting to me, because I mean, you can sense an age difference watching the film, especially between Charles and Luke, and see how that age difference is affecting their relationship too. So I'm assuming that they went to the same school but different years. Maybe it was the actress who played Claire, but even right when Charles picks Lucas up from prison, in that car, there's a dynamic between them, and their age difference is part of it, I think.
Yeah. That's, well, I definitely, I imagine them to be like from completely different background aside, like the school thing, different families, different time frame, and that's what the whole dynamic of those two characters was all about, so it feels great to hear that you felt that on the screen as well.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, it's, I commend you, because I think, and by the way, I mean, I could see this, I don't always say this about, I say this a lot, but I don't always say this about a short film, which is there is so much to it that I could see you expanding it.
Yeah.
Because there really is a lot to the story. I mean, it's great that you get in and out and tell this story, but there's so many levels to what's going on between these human beings.
You know what? Like, I think that's such an interesting comment. And there are people who told me when the film ended, like, they were like, oh, well, we wanted it to continue, like what's going to happen, and other than just the fact that they're missing information, they were like, we were so comfortable, like, getting to know those characters. We wanted to know how it would turn out, and well, I mean, I think that's like the magic of like having an open ending in a short film, like feeling like it could have gone on, I feel like it gives life to the story even more, without necessarily like imagining like a feature of it all. I feel like that just tells me, well, the story is interesting and it was worth watching. And like that was the goal with this story. Cause that's what I feared when I wrote it that way. I was like, is it going to be like a case of people thinking, well, the film is not finished, there's a missing part to it, is it the real ending, So it was a really big stress, but as it goes, I think like I kind of like I'm at peace with it, because I feel like it's actually like it's a finished story. It's just it could go on for their life, because every human being, if they're still alive, there's still a story to be written, So this idea to put that kind of element in a short film, I mean, I didn't intend for it to be exactly that way, but it became that way with people watching it, for the film being alive. Like that's how people got to make the film the way it is, I don't know if that makes sense what I'm saying, the fact that people watch it, they gave it another meaning,
Oh, it makes perfect sense. And I'll just share that if I were in a room or in a theater with people and they were saying, wait, the story's not over, I would say, I would debate them viciously. I would say, no, this story's over. In fact, if it continued, I would be perfectly content if you never put them in a room together again and continued Lucas's story separately and Charles and Claire's story separately. I feel like I feel like when Lucas leaves, he's done with this.
Yeah.
I think he's actually grown just in that one day.
Yeah, the 24-hour frame. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to say much about it because I have my own interpretation, and I don't want to kind of put that like in people's mind. But I mean, that's the interesting thing, like everybody can have their own. Well, what's Luke going to do? And if you're connected enough to the character throughout this like 12-minute film, well, that's the big win for me. I think that people connected to it, and if they ask questions about Luke, well, I mean, that's what this film was all about, to connect with someone that you didn't know about, and 12 minutes later you just want to know all about his like next life.
Yeah, my God, we have no idea what his next life is, and I respect you not wanting to bias an audience, because it is always fun for me to have filmmakers say, oh, someone will tell them what they think the film is about or what the character is about, and the filmmaker goes, that is not what I thought at all, but I completely support you. because it's, people will see different things, and everyone brings their own lifetime of experience to a human story. So yeah, there's no two people will see things the same. Yeah, I imagine there could be people who would have a completely different feeling about what these characters are about and what their dynamics are than me, because my opinions are probably biased by what I've experienced in the last 5 decades. I'm old, but but it's for sure.
I'm very comfortable with people appropriating this story, I feel that good filmmaking, the way to relate to good filmmaking is what it is, like if you tell a story by a campfire, like we said earlier, well, like those people that telling you this story are appropriating it to their own like life or sauce, like they're putting their own sauce onto it. And then when you hear that story, well, you didn't read it down, or you didn't write it down, you didn't read it. You're just going to remember what you want to remember from it, the way you want to remember it. And that's appropriating a story in a good way, and I think that what makes like this film alive, and that, maybe like in a couple of years, some of the people that were closest to me, they're going to watch this film, they're going to, see something to it that still makes sense, in that time frame. And I feel on my side as well, like that story is going to evolve. The Bengal story is going to evolve with me all my life, because that's a film I made in a really specific time frame with really true and specific intentions that I had at this specific time in my life when we shot that film. So, I mean, in a personal level, I feel like I'm really proud of that film in that way, because I'm really comfortable for this film to grow old with me.
I'm so glad you're proud of it too, because it always breaks my heart when I love a film and the filmmaker says, oh, I'm not happy with it at all. And I'm like, come on, don't be so. Some people are overly self-critical, I think. All right, so an obvious question for me to ask you now is, of course, so the film was in Film Invasion Los Angeles in 2020, which means you shot it, you completed it, you submitted it right before COVID hit. Because it just so happens that film festival in 2020, the final deadline was March 15th, which was pretty much, at least in North America, when the outbreak began. Did you get to go to some festivals in person with this film, or was it all trapped in virtual?
The funny thing about it is the premiere we had was somewhere like the March 18th, 2020. And that's like 2 days before everything closed down. So
was that just a cast and crew screening you did, or?
No, it was actually like a premiere in a festival.
Oh, okay, great.
A pretty big festival in Quebec. And we were all on the way there. And on the way there, we learned that the present screening, they wouldn't happen. The physical screening, they just cancel it all because they feared that the international guests would bring or would be contaminated and would contaminate like furthermore guests in the festival. So they had to shut it all down before we even arrived over there. So
you didn't get it in.
Never. Yeah, I never got to show Bengal to a physical audience, and never on the big screen either. So, I mean, that's probably most heartbreaking thing about making this movie is I saw it on many screens, but not just like a big like screen, you know.
And you missed it by days, like 1 week earlier, and you could have had that experience.
Exactly. That's exactly what happened.
Wow, amazing timing. So in the time since then, have you continued writing? Have you shot anything since this?
Yes. Well, I mean, I've had a busy year, you know, in 2021. Actually, back in 2020, I had this idea during the pandemic to do this, this little series. I think I remember telling you when we spoke during our Q&A back then, or was it? Well, anyway, that had ideas for documentaries, and I wanted to go toward that kind of space because I wasn't really comfortable going there, and I had this idea for a project named Stalks that I released the pilot season on Instagram, and we did 4 episodes, and the basic idea was to be really close to some people, but from distance. And what that meant for me was to take a camera and ask those people to choose a place that they were comfortable walking around, or just make a place that would make them feel happy. And I would just like put them there, and I would just like creep on them being there with a camera. And beforehand, I would just ask them for a couple of questions over the phone, you know, like just have a conversation, but ask them to not say anything on the phone, you know, just ask a couple of questions about what it felt for them to be during this pandemic, especially as artists, because I specifically ask artists from like the 90s, you know, born in the 90s. And then I would just ask them to answer that question walking around in that place. And I would just like creep on them to have their answer. Obviously I would have like this mic on them, you know, to hear them from close, but you would always see images of them, you know, with a mini DV camera, you know, so like kind of this retro kind of feeling. And, we did like 4 episodes of like 2, 3, 4 minutes each. And you get just like really truthful, I guess, speeches about what it's like to be an artist in this kind of transition moment. Or is there a transition? Some people would agree that there are not a transition, or that there could be a transition from this moment for artists, for them, for their work, for their life, or life in general, or society. It could be like a wider range of ideas that they had, or just specific idea that they wanted to talk about. And we shot for like maybe 45 an hour each, and I would just like bring it down to 2-3 minutes of like really truthful sayings. And it was probably one of the most vibrant projects I made during the pandemic because, it felt personal while I was just like catching those really personal stories of other people. And it was a really exciting project. It gave me like we're working on the first full season of it. We want to do 8 episodes for next fall. So it's actually a project I'm working on right now. Writing a lot of fiction, but since I've been working on the business a lot as a assistant director, I didn't like have time to just plan the whole project and like the financing and stuff, you know, because obviously, you know, like for the next movie, I would need some financing for it. And in Quebec, it's there are really good institutes to do that. So but it takes like a lot of time to kind of build onto it. So yeah, that's pretty much what's been happening right now.
That sounds like a very cool project, the Instagram thing, and a very very valuable thing to capture what people are going through during the pandemic. And also glad to hear that. So you're actually joining crews and crewing up as an AD and probably learning a bit on those sets too.
learning a lot. I mean, being an AD has been like one of the most interesting work thing I've done in so long, you know, because you're close to the director, you're close to the producers, you're close to some people, the crew, and you get to communicate a lot, that ideas, directions, whatever. And you get to learn so much, you know, you get to learn so much from those interactions with people. And I get to talk with actors, really great actors as well, that would have never met, like, in a, like, you know, at my age, you know, I think. But now I get to meet them and talk to them, and maybe sometimes I share some really great conversations. So yeah, it's been like a really fruitful year in terms of like my learning experience of the business, you know, and having like some sort of a exterior kind of, well, I mean, I imagine it like as my POV of filmmaking, you know, I'm having like, my eyes right into it without being like involved in a creative, really close way in every project. So yeah, I think that's just great for my personal, you know, experience of a director kind of trying to make it into like bigger projects. Yeah.
Yeah. Interestingly, I can't help, this is just a flaw in my personality, but I can't help but think that most of these people, you know, most of the people on a set, you know, want to be filmmakers themselves. And I just wish these people could see Bengal and realize that this young guy they're talking to actually has made something really great. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's, I'm sure most people looked at an AD and like, you could be an up and coming genius or you could be a hack. Like there's no way to know. And, it's wonderful that you have a film like Bengal behind you that is actually really quite good.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, it is crazy that like, yeah, you feel like so many people are working in this business and I mean, they imagine a movie right now, you know, they're maybe working on it. And there are actually a lot of people who shares those kind of thing. Oh yeah, I'm working as, you know, I don't know, a PA right now, but I'm actually like trying to get my short film to get made, whatever. I'm writing this or whatever. And it gives you some sort of a community, you know, like of people who's going to share some projects with you. And then you can share your project with them. And, you know, it gets the conversation going. Although it's a 2 years old project or 3, 5, whatever, 10 years old project. Well, you know, they're going to send you like the Vimeo link and you're going to watch somebody else's films and you're just going to talk about it. And I mean, I feel that's the vital part of filmmaking is discussion about film gives you like opportunities to meet people that could be collaborators later, you know? And that's very important to make films. I mean, I feel like I have yet to meet the next collaborators in my movies, you know, and I feel that it's very important for me since with Bengal, it was an experience of being really close with those people. And we all kind of understood the same movie in a different way that brought us really together to make one film, you know, that would bring us, you know, to this result. And, well, I feel like that's the only way to make film for me. You know, if I'm not feeling comfortable in my crew, I feel I couldn't bring the movie like at its furthest, you know, kind of like result or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, well, that's a really good, I think that's a good place for us to wrap up. I was before I name a bunch of websites and social media handles, is there a website or a social media handle that people should check out to learn more about you and you know, catch your Instagram projects and things?
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, I have my Instagram, which is Samuël L Jodry. So if you want to follow my projects, I'm posting a couple things, and also the stock projects that you can find on Instagram as well. It's still up. It's still there. So if you speak a little French, I mean, you can go there and watch some of it. I'm yet to do like English subtitles because the demand is not there yet. But you know, that interests some people to learn some French or hear it. It's there for you guys to watch.
Excellent. All right. For people who want me to say it again, it's at Samuël Jodry, which is Jodry for people. All right. Well, Samuel, it was great to talk to you. We'll stop recording and then we'll record the next podcast, which is going to be you answering those 4 questions where I get to hear what your favorite films are and some films you maybe didn't like. But I will now go on my little list of things that I'd love people to do. First of all, thank you for listening to this podcast. Feel free to give it 5 stars anywhere you listen to it, or click subscribe or click like, whatever it takes. Please do that. It doesn't take anything, and it's a kindness. This world could use some kindness. Of course, Samuel's film Bengal, or Before Happiness Strikes, is going to be in the Discover Indie Film TV series. If you want to learn more about it, go to discoverindiefilm.com, and on social media, it's at DIFwins. And of course, I think I mentioned in the beginning, anywhere Amazon Prime Video is. Actually, I shouldn't say that because Amazon controls what markets we're in. And I get frequent emails from Canada saying, I can't watch your show in Canada. So actually, I don't believe they've put us in Canada yet. I don't even know how to get it done because it's all up to them. It's funny because my best friend I grew up with moved to Vancouver, and he has I was going to say, hey, does your son want to create his own Amazon account? We'll try to get this series on up in Canada, submitted by somebody else. I don't know. But so I don't think Canadians can watch it. But if you go to Amazon Prime Video, just search for Discover Indie Film. Right now, there's 4 10-episode seasons up. I think there's about 75 short films in those 40 episodes. And 10 more episodes in season 5 will hit in March. And that will include Samuel's film Bengal. And we talked about Filmvasion LA, the film festival that I met Samuel through. And you can learn about it. It's every June in LA. It's Filmvasion Los Angeles. So that's filmvasionla.com. And on social media, it's at Filmvasion LA. And there happens to be a sister festival every November. That's the Sherman Oaks Film Festival. You can learn about it at ShermanOaksFF.com. And social media, it's at ShermanOaksFF. And that is what I was supposed to say. So did I ask for, I asked for 5 stars. I asked for likes. If people want to be nice, go on Amazon.com and give the TV series 5 stars too. You know, one of the funny things about the series is, I think I mentioned there's been 75 films in it so far. And there's not 75 5-star reviews, which means all the directors involved still didn't bother to review it. So, you know, of course, people are busy. Anyway, thank you, Samuel, for taking the time.
Thank you for the opportunity. Really, it's always great to talk to you.
Yeah, it's always great to talk to you, too. It's really, I got to tell you, that's I just started this podcast because I was meeting filmmakers at the festivals, and we were doing decent Q&As, 15, 20 minutes. And I was like, there's so much more to hear from people about their work and about their art. So started the podcast, and it's just a pleasure to hear, not to be biased, but I love to hear what the next generation is thinking. And to me, I could be your dad. What can I say? So it was really cool to hear your perspectives on film. So it was a pleasure for me too.
Thank you very much. It's great that you're interested. So thank you for doing this. It's a really great thing to do for all the young filmmakers out there.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. And thank you everyone for listening.